back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We're having a good time in the midst of a conversation with a guy I've waited to have on, and I feel like vindicated now because he's been a great guest. West Baltimore guy, chased by a herd of, I don't know what the hell they were. Buffalo. I'm going to let him tell the story. Deion Broxton is here. He's now in Iowa via Montana. In the first segment, if you missed it, go find it at Baltimore Positive. You just jumped in the car at AM 1570 WNST. Make sure you go find it or hear it again on the replay at some point about a kid following his dream out of Towson and is now out in Iowa. And I was telling you my Montana stories because I was so – and I spent 25 years, 18 years, 15 years of my marriage telling my wife about it. And you wind up in Bozeman, and we were talking forest fires and all that. But I want you to give me the story of the first time you saw Yellowstone, because when you work in Bozeman, you're like, literally, you drive through Big Sky, the area I'm telling you, you drove right past the bar I'm talking about, right? But Yellowstone's this incredible thing, and if you love the outdoors, it's one of the greatest places on earth.
And I'm not an outdoor person. And so when I got to Montana, everyone kept saying, "Are you going skiing? Are you going to Yellowstone? This and that." I was like, no. But Yellowstone is like an hour and 30 minutes away from Bozeman. And, it's to my knowledge, it's the world's most popular, or the country's most popular national park. They call it the crown jewel because it's like the big one. So I didn't like going there because, one, in the summertime, it's crazy busy. But people come to Bozeman to go to Yellowstone. So my boss would send me there a lot to cover stories there. And I hated it because that's 3 hours of driving. And, a typical shift is 8 hours. So almost half of my shift is me driving to cover stories in Yellowstone. So I hated going there. And I remember the first time I went, I saw animals that I've never seen before in my life. When I saw an elk, I'm like, is that a horse? Like, what is that? I saw antelope. And I'm like, I thought antelope were only in Africa. I didn't know they were in Montana or Wyoming. Then I saw bison, and I mean, they're huge. I think they're like 1,700 up to 2,000 pounds. So my first few times going there, my mouth just dropped and I was in awe. But I've been there so many times that I kind of got comfortable with seeing the animals everywhere. And I remember the day of the bison video. And the reason I was in the park that day, because they had closed the park because of the pandemic. And whenever I go to Yellowstone, I go through the north entrance, which is in Gardner, Montana. So once you go through the north entrance, you go from Gardner to Wyoming, where Yellowstone is. And I've never seen so many bison at the entrance of the park in my life, because there are so many people and so many cars there. The animals don't congregate there because there's so many people. But because the park was closed because of the pandemic, the animals felt more freely to roam. It had to be like 50 or 60 bison there. So, I went to go shoot my story, get my B-roll, and shoot myself standing there at the park. And when I set my camera up, the bison, I think it was 5 or 6 of them, they were just like chilling, eating grass, roaming. And I've been to the park at this point probably like 25 or 30 times. That bison, they're pretty docile. If you give them their space, they're pretty docile.
Yeah, they don't want you. There's nothing they want with you, right?
No.
Literally.
So I felt comfortable setting my camera up there. And, they were probably maybe 40 yards away, 50, I don't know. And so as I'm setting my camera up, I do my thing, start talking and stuff. I see them creeping towards me. Now, from covering so many stories in Yellowstone, I believe it's bears and wolves, you need to be at least 100 yards away. All other animals, you need to be at least 25 yards away for your safety. And I've been in Yellowstone to cover the story where a little girl, I think she was 8 years old, she got flipped in the air by a bison. I covered a story of a guy who was drunk in Yellowstone and he was taunting the bison on the road.
I saw that.
Yes.
Jack wagon. Yeah.
Yep. And I was in court and he was in court. I was in court for him.
Wow. I saw that video because it happened right after we were there.
Yep.
We were there 3 summers ago for that You probably knew about the Pearl Jam show. You're probably out there then, right?
Uh, I think were you there in 2018?
18, yes.
Yep. I got there June of 2018.
This
Yep.
was August of 18.
Yep. So yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. So the bison were creeping closer to me, and I'm just like, when in my mind, when are you guys gonna stop walking towards me? And they didn't stop. And the one that was
How many
closest,
were there?
I think it was 5 or 6. I was so
Okay.
spooked, I'm just like, I was so I think it was 5 or 6. And 'cause I think if you look at my video, you can see I think at least 5 bison in the video. So they didn't stop, and the one closest to me didn't break eye contact. So I'm like, and from watching Animal Planet and things like that, I'm like, if this animal isn't breaking eye contact with me, he's fascinated. He's fascinated by me. So I didn't want to stick around. And I know from covering incidences where people have been gored and attacked by bison, they can run up to 35 miles per hour.
But also, like, if you have the wrong cologne or had something on your
Yes.
breath or ate something, I mean, it literally could be
Yeah,
anything, right? I mean,
exactly.
dude, it's my worst nightmare. Like, I'm weirded out by all of it. And, I saw the video and I found out you're from Baltimore and everybody knew you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to bring you on. I'm glad you survived, right? And I know you're probably worn out talking about it, which is why it's not certainly not the centerpiece of your life because you're now out in Iowa. When did you get to Iowa?
I got to, and it's funny. I got to Iowa on May 26th because the same day I left Montana to drive to Iowa was the same day that George Floyd was murdered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll never forget
So
that.
you took a new gig halfway across the country in the middle of the pandemic, literally, right?
Yeah, and I guess a race war too, because my third day on the job in Iowa, protesters got tear gassed by the police.
Man, you're making your way back to Freddie Gray all over again. Did you have a hard time leaving Montana, or did you? No, okay. It was a place to go and visit, and you enjoyed it though.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I enjoyed it. People kept saying, "Oh, Montana is beautiful, and this and that, and skiing and Yellowstone." Yes, but I'm black. I am
Yeah,
black, and
and you can't hide from that, literally,
no,
right?
and the stares that I mean, I understand it. It's more of a curiosity thing. Like and I have coworkers who I worked with in Montana who told me they've never seen a black person until they were teenagers. So if I have coworkers telling me that, imagine other people in Montana. So like I was not comfortable
Well,
there, man.
it's not a place where people are together. It's such a remote.
Yes.
I don't think you can appreciate how far away things are. Like when we're kids, you drive to Ocean City, you're like, man, it's a long way from Easton to Cambridge, and there's nothing in between. It's all 15 miles, like,
Yeah.
wow, And then you get out to Montana and you see these remote things. I should tell you this because you'll appreciate this because it was the summer that you were out, one of the summers you were out there. We had planned this trip for a couple of months to go out to do this Pearl Jam thing, and we had made it a little shorter, a little longer. We weren't really sure of everywhere we were going to go. We knew the destination and how we were getting in and getting out. We moved flights at one point to do this, and the week before we went out, National Geographic, maybe TV, Nat Geo TV, I think was the one, did a week long Yellowstone. It was like Shark Week. You know what I mean? Like the whole
Hmm.
week was, yeah. And whoever one of the famous broadcasters and a model. I don't even know who the hell it was, but either whoever they were, they did a Yellowstone live. It was called Yellowstone Live, I think. So they did like 2 hours a night, and these were literally the 5 nights leading up to us leaving for the trip, and we watched it every night, right? So about the fourth night, we're watching it. My wife's really interested. She's like, look at that eagle. Look at that sunset. Oh my God, look at those crested buttes. It's so beautiful. Look at those bears. Look at those wolves. Look at it. Like all the bison, all this stuff, right? And they had helicopters. It was all HD. It was so beautiful. So I said to her, this is great. We're going to spend 9 hours in the park without being in the park before we even get there. And if we see anything we really want to see, we might be able to like detour and go do it, right? And we were only spending a few days in the park, and I didn't want to get eaten by bears, and we wanted to go see Old Faithful, we all that stuff, right? The magnetic, was it magnetic? What's it called, Deion? Magnetic.
Um,
You
The
know what I'm talking
thermal
about.
springs?
Yeah, the water that's beautiful. Yeah, right. So the night before we leave,
Grand Prismatic.
Grand Prismatic. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I knew you'd remember that.
Yeah.
So here we go. So the night before we leave, she falls asleep on it. I stayed awake, and they showed this bear preserve east of Bozeman, right? And I said to myself, she was asleep, and I was gonna wake her up and say, "Hey, man, check this out! Like it's like a place you can go and see bears, grizzly bears, like, and they won't
Livingston.
eat you, you know." I didn't wake her up. I let her sleep, and I took notes and I started googling it, and I checked it out, and I said, "I'm gonna surprise her." So we woke up in Bozeman. I told her the whole way. I said, "Look, I'm putting a half a day aside. I'm not telling you what we're doing. I'm not telling you why we're doing it. You're going to know when we get there." And she loves surprises, you know. So we slept in Bozeman. We had a hotel in Bozeman, and we got up in the morning and we drove east. She's like, "The hell are we driving east for?" You know, I'll pull the map up so I can show everybody if you are watching that on a video. So this is Bozeman, right? And this is where we are. And there is a grizzly bear preserve, and I pulled the pictures up here. I'll pull this up on my Facebook. And I took my wife to see actual bears. Deion, have you been to this place here? East of
I
Bozeman, the Montana Grizzly Encounter. Are you familiar with this?
I know exactly what it is because I drove past the signs a million times, and some reporters have done stories on that place, but I haven't. But I know exactly where it is.
Dude, I took her there, and like she has pictures that look like she took them out in the woods because there's no, it's sort of like the San Diego moat situation where you can look the animals in the eye. Man, to see a claw on a grizzly bear, dude.
I, I've seen 4 bears in person.
And you remember
Not
everyone.
Yes, every single one, and one of them was a grizzly, and it was terrifying.
100 yards or no?
Um, so the last bear that I saw in person in Montana was a grizzly, and I was in a car, and I had just come from Zion National Park, which is in Utah, and we were driving through West Yellowstone, the Big Sky, and there were a bunch of cars like pulled over on
And
the
West
side of the.
Yellowstone is like this western town of nothing but
Yes.
like fast food restaurants.
Yep.
It literally it's like Breezewood, but
Yep.
like bigger.
Yep. Because it's right there on the west side of the park. And all these cars were pulled over on the side of the road. And we were like, what's going on up here? So then we see a grizzly bear on the side of the road eating grass. And the three bears I've seen before were black bears. And for anyone who
What is
knows
it? If it's black, stay back. If it's brown, back down. There's some saying they give you for that.
if it's a black bear, you might survive. If it's a grizzly, you're not.
Got it.
So with grizzly bears, like black bears are like high school linebackers. Grizzly bears are Ray Lewis. And the second we pulled up, I knew immediately it was a grizzly bear because the hump in their back is bigger and their paws are bigger. And I guess too many people crowded around and it took off.
Oh
And
my
I've
God.
seen black bears run away from it because I was on a hike and I ran into a black bear and it ran away. And it was fast, but it wasn't as fast as a grizzly bear. And when that thing took off, it was like Seabiscuit running towards the wood. I'm like, oh my God. It was beautiful though. I was scared. I was in the car, but it was gorgeous just
Well, that's
watching
you.
it.
The whole story about you, right? You're out there. You were shooting alone, right? Like the time when you're shooting, you
Yeah.
don't have a camera person.
No.
You're still shooting. So it's just you and nature, and these animals are coming at you, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world. But it's frightening. I mean, I don't think
Yes.
there's any doubt about that, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I tell people if you want to go to Yellowstone, go in the fall because there's less people and your chances of seeing more animals are higher. Like you can see a grizzly bear and wolves if you go in the fall because they're more willing to travel when there's not so many people there. But just like I say, be in a car, have your bear spray, things like that. Because that's when National Geographic get those better shots when there's less people in the park.
Deion Broxton is here. He is West Baltimore via West Yellowstone via now Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You may be familiar with him running from a herd of bison in Yellowstone Park last year. He has now just won a big award in Iowa. I mean, you want to brag on yourself or like give me this because you've been in Iowa about a year now, right?
Yes. I guess 2 weeks from now will make a year since I've been here in Iowa.
Preakness
But
week.
yeah, yep. The award I won, like I said, my third day on the job was protesters being tear gassed by police, and then 3 months after that, the police department released the body cam footage from that day. So the story I did on that body cam footage being released was when I won my first place award for general reporting.
You
So
come a long way from reading the scores, then, huh, brother?
oh yeah, a long way. It was like I don't know if you saw the picture of when Kobe won his first championship. He just like held it in the locker room and sat in silence. And I was actually with a friend when I found out I won, and I just sat in silence because it made it feel like everything that I've gone through in my life was worth it.
Well, it's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful story, and it's been a beautiful visit with you. I don't know where your next stop is, or if you're Cedar Rapids and you're going to be Iowa's newscaster the next 30 years, or how it's going to turn out for you. But if you need a crab cake, I mean, you got to ship from Fadley's Costas. I mean, you're not getting that out there. So I'm doing a crab cake tour this summer. If you come home, find yourself home, by all means, come out, have a crab cake, have a proper adult beverage. We'll figure it all out. Anything else that you miss from here, I guess you got to get it shipped out. But Iowa, right? I mean, you are getting a true Americana tour here, brother, right? In the middle of a real political time where news reporters, I mean, you're in the midst of it, right? Obviously, seeing this
Yeah,
story and becoming a part of this story and winning an award for a story that, quite frankly, you wish you don't trip over.
yeah. The politics in Iowa, they're great. Like they do not mince words, they go for blood. The governor, she was just on Fox News last week, and that spun like stories for us to tell because a lot of stuff she said on Fox News we just found out about. So it's like media gold for us, and Democrats hate it, but it's been really fun covering news in Iowa. But in Montana, I think the best part was the beer. Like Montana has the best. Like I wasn't a craft beer drinker
Now you're making
until
me
I
thirsty. Now you make me want
yeah,
to go back.
Montana has the best craft beer I've ever had. Now, they have craft beer too in Iowa, but it's just not as good. I'm just being honest. The politics are better in Iowa, but the beer is great in Montana.
And the crab cakes suck in both places. Deion Broxton
Yes,
here.
they do suck.
You can follow him. It's Deion Broxton, Broxton. Now I can say award-winning reporter for Iowa's News Now out in Cedar Rapids. Dude, a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. I'm honored to tell your story. I hope it continues on. You're all up to like 26 or 27 now, right? How old are you?
28.
All right. I mean, soon
Hmm.
you'll be like 30 or something like
I
that.
know.
But hey, man, I hope you have 25 more years of great stories. I mean, you certainly picked some up the first couple of years here. You're writing a hell of a book, Deion.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And to talk Ravens with you, man. You got anything you want to say on the draft picks? You got your Ravens gear on, the whole deal,
I,
right?
I'm not sold on this is actually has a Montana tie. So when I was in Montana, one of my coworkers is from Minnesota, and he's a big Gophers fan. So I think I watched every Gophers game with him in 2019. So I saw Rashard Bateman, but my thing with the Ravens, we just don't develop receivers. We normally
But
have
you
to go
don't
get them.
quit. You don't stop. This is
I
they have
agree.
invested, and that's all you can do, especially when you're gonna have to pay the quarterback this kind of money.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense, but like I gotta see it to believe it. Because Demetrius Williams, Mark Clayton, I mean, I can go way back. These guys just never panned out. Miles Boykin, I mean, these guys really aren't panning out. Hollywood, one week he's on, 1 week he's off. So I'm just like, are we going to utilize his talent? Because it's more of the scheme. We're not like a passing offense. So, and all of my coworkers, because this is Big Ten country, all of my coworkers know who Bateman is, and they're like, "Oh, that's a good pick for the Ravens." I'm just like, "Yeah, but we don't really develop receivers like that." So I'm just kind of holding my breath and waiting to see.
They didn't develop black sportscasters in Bozeman until you came, right? Literally, right?
Let's hope he's the
Hey, man, I'm
anomaly.
just saying, right?
Yeah.
Deion Broxton joining us here from out in Iowa. Iowa's news now. He's developing out there in Cedar Rapids and just won a big award with the Iowa Broadcast News Association. Congrats, brother. And I hope I hope I didn't scare you off to come back. So I hope you come back sometime soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Deion Broxton joining us here, and famous for a video and now famous for hanging out on Baltimore Positive. And hopefully we get him back on here sometime soon and talk some more football. We're talking all sorts of things here this week. The Crab Cake Tour begins next week at Fadley's. Then we're going to Costas, and then we're going everywhere there is to go throughout the state of Maryland in August. I'll be telling you more about that. Big time appreciation to our friends at Wise Markets. We're eating better, spending less. The intelligent conversations have become wise conversations. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.